Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya.
Live from Brooklyn, New York, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Brooklyn. I'm here live at my brother's house. I couldn't drive home last night. We had an Easter dinner here at my brother's house. And saw my mom, saw my sister, saw my nephew, saw my brothers.
Did you go to church?
No, we've somehow taken Jesus right out of Easter.
Became a big bunny kind of thing.
It was just like we worship a bunny god.
Okay.
We worship a bunny and egg god. Yeah, there was very little Jesus going on, but it was more of like you know what? Truthfully, I think a lot of these holidays, when people aren't really religious, they just become family gatherings, which are still pretty good compared to what we've become, what our culture's become, where everybody lives in separate places. You don't see your brothers or sisters or mother so often. So it's a good time to just get together and eat food and laugh and fight a little, you know? And in my case, play ping pong and soccer with the nephews. Right. I don't hang well with adult conversation. I just sort of like, I find my brothers and sisters all exponentially smarter than me. And I was like, let's play with the nephews. I can play really well.
They never inquire from you about philosophy.
I never preach.
I'm not saying preach. I asked, did they inquire from you ever?
No.
About your beliefs.
I think we have a mutual understanding.
They don't want to know.
It's like you be you and we'll be us.
Okay.
Yeah. We're at that stage.
Well, why don't we keep moving forward here?
Yeah.
Mara, who's already in the kitchen.
You're already in the kitchen. It's 6 a.m., Mara. What are you doing?
I got a lunch that's got to be ready by 10 a.m.
That's catering life.
Yeah, so I got to start it early.
He's back, catering life. Can you make some extras? I'm hungry.
Sure, you want to come by for lunch later? You're welcome to.
All right.
Any announcements, Mara?
Yes, Bhakti recovery group meetings today at 1 and 9:30 Eastern time, and Raghu's going to do a Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 7 p.m.
At Gopal Chandra's.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it. If you're a local, want to come to Gopal Chandra's, I'm personally inviting you. Just hit me up somehow. All right, we're packing his place out.
And how about a nugget, Raghunath? Do you have a nugget for us today?
Have I got a nugget for you from one of my favorites?
Who's that?
Aldous Huxley.
Is it Aldous?
Aldous Huxley. He's the only Aldous I know. Do you know any other Aldous?
I can't think. I mean, I know other Als.
I know a lot of Als. Okay, here's the nugget. The effects. This is a good one.
You like this?
Yeah. The effects which follow too constant and intense concentration upon evil are always disastrous. It goes on, but you could just meditate upon that. The effects which follow too constant and intense concentration upon evil are always disastrous.
So like there are bad things going on in the world, and I might even feel compelled, like I might even feel guilt if I'm not constantly thinking about them.
Right. The effects which follow too constant and intense concentration upon evil. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's bringing, when you see evil, it's just making you angry and resentful and spiteful, and you want revenge and you want justice. And oftentimes it doesn't come with, it doesn't come from the greater perspective. It comes from an intense, focused perspective, where we want like justice immediately. We don't want to really see what's going on often. But anyway, even any other case, let me continue this.
Let us continue.
Those who crusade not for God in themselves, but against the devil in others, never succeed in making the world a better never succeed in making the world better, but leave it either as it was, or sometimes even perceptively worse than it was before the crusade began. Ooh, this is so good.
Just
this
the first
so
part of that
right
sentence was just the first part of that sentence. It gives a clue, right? Like it's a formula.
Yeah,
it may be counterintuitive, but powerful. Those who crusade not for God in themselves, but against the devil and others, never succeed in making the world better.
This is so good, man. And but leave it either as it is, or sometimes even perceptively worse than it was before the crusade began. By thinking primarily of evil, we tend, however excellent in our intentions. Sorry, my glasses aren't on. Why don't you finish this, reading this?
By thinking primarily of evil, we tend, however excellent our intentions, to create occasions for evil to manifest itself.
Wow.
I think
how many different ways can this be said? We've said so many things like this on the show before.
Even just like a big issue nowadays is, and we've talked about this before, Raghu, is like, we say that when we were growing, always media, is going to have some slant one way or another. That's there. There's always, the people that bring you the media have are invested in different ways and so on. But it is a fact that when we were kids, you had a far more kind of neutral presentation of the news, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like news it seems to be, that it's either you're hearing it from this side or from that side.
It's not news. It's not journalism. It's an
attack.
It's opinions.
One side attacking another.
And it's leaving out essential things that are happening because they don't fit into your narrative. It's unfortunate.
Well, that's my point. So like, where do you
everybody
get truth?
Hateful?
Like where can you get some truth? And basically, when you see that someone is like angry and heated against the other side, right? Like their mode is always to attack the other side. Right there, that's a red flag. That I'm not going to hear that this person isn't trying. There are some rare instances out there, right, where you get a more dispassionate presentation, where someone can speak to the vision from the other side. Okay, I can understand why they're concerned about this. I can understand, this is a valid, but this is a valid concern, but here's why I see it differently. You don't get too much of that anymore. Rather, what you get is a complete distrust of the other person's intention and an attack against their position, without even considering what they may be saying, the truth in what they may be saying, what they may be saying. Those are red flags, and it's that kind of aggression that I believe is what Aldous Huxley's speaking here. Once you're thinking in that way, then you just increase the conflict. You increase in a sense, you increase what he's calling the evil. Right?
Or why not bring on the opposition and talk about stuff instead of just like writing them off. Bring if you don't agree with someone, bring them on your show and then talk to them about it, and let's get to the bottom of something. And you might disagree with them, and that's okay also. And that's what's part of living in a free society, is where we can have discussions. And there can be people that we just don't agree with. then that's okay.
Yeah,
but
at least try to understand them.
And try to understand them.
Yeah.
I
like
mean,
sometime back we had those, I think it was the 4 rules for like, how to debate someone or something. And the first one was you had to listen, and then you had to repeat back to the other person what their position is so well that they would say to you, "Oh, you said it better than I could say it."
Right.
Like try to start there.
Imagine if on the news media we were like, "Let me understand them."
Yeah.
And you really try to understand, like in an argument you have with someone you love. First, seek to understand, and then to be understood.
And also the big clue here, those who crusade not for God in themselves, right? In other words, that's if we want to make the world a better place, that's always where it's going to have to start. Takes taking up that responsibility.
The devil in others. That was so good. The devil made me do it. The devil. I love the concept of the devil.
Do you? You might like to read this book, The Devils of Loudon. That's where this quote comes from.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, my friend.
That's the nugget.
Anything else interesting before we dive into the nectar pot?
I think we're ready to dive in, Raghunath.
Okay, Makeover Monday. It's a new day. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama-shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet.
You know what? A last second scroll, but it's going back.
What?
Is that there's also like a yogic principle, or could say a meditative principle, a principle of meditation, that you become like, you begin to be, your mind takes the shape of what it's meditating on.
Sure.
Right. So if you're constantly meditating on evil without that darshana, right, without that conception, that this conception of darshana protects you, right, from becoming what you don't want to become. When you always take the time to understand that even if this person's mental state I find problematic, I know that beneath that mental state, there's a spirit that's the same as me, that's that's composed of the same spiritual energy, that possesses the same qualities as me, that is temporarily embodied with this mental conception, and will pass through this mental conception, just as I have in the past, right? I've gone through so many different mental states, and so let me relate to this person on that spiritual level. That protects you,
This is the real work. This is like the inner engineering. I hate to steal that phrase from Sadhguru. He coined that phrase, but it's a good
Sadhguru?
phrase.
I think that was was it Sadhguru? Maybe it was Sadhguru.
It is Sadhguru.
Yeah, Sadhguru.
But or Ravi Shankar or something, maybe.
Sri Ravi Shankar.
Sri Ravi Shankar. But that it's really true. This is like, it's like, what do you guys do anyway with all this spiritual this and that? Well, we're vegetarians, but no, what we're really doing is working on this deep-rooted ego stuff. And it gives us peace in this world. We learn to really zoom out with a very broad vantage point. Try to be understanding, and be tolerant, and be compassionate, and be loving, and encourage people, and not condemn, and not hate. And that's huge. If I can get rid of hate in me, that's huge. That in itself, if we can get rid of our own personal hate, we've done mountains of work in this lifetime.
We're our own personal hate from Hackensack. Good name for a metal band.
On a side note, Squirrel, I'm going to John Evie's wedding.
Oh, great. You going to drive me there?
No.
Come on, man. I need a ride.
I can't.
Why not?
I'm going the day before. I'm going to bring the kids. We're going to get a hotel and swimming pool.
Well, maybe I could go the day before. Now you got a hotel and everything. Okay, forget. We'll work that out later.
It's the wheel.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think about it. Okay.
That's nice. I'm going to be the priest in that wedding.
What am I going to do? Just sit around, eat cake?
Sorry, guy.
So, and I'm at the Bhakti Center that weekend too. I'm doing a whole day at the Bhakti Center.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Saw that. Okay.
Come to that.
More on that later.
Okay. All right, ready?
Yeah. So what are we reading from?
We're in a new chapter, man.
All right.
Oh, chapter 13, description of the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. Okay, we heard the story of Dhruva Maharaj. What were his descendants like?
Yeah, well,
interesting.
There was a mention of the Prachetas in the previous chapter, and the Prachetas are these 9 brothers. I believe there's 9 of them, right? And they are all great yogis, incredible yogis, and so that mention of the Prachetas will encourage Vidura to begin to ask about them, and so then we have to go through. The Maitreya will go through the description of that dynasty.
It's all real, isn't it? It's all real. We talk about the whole dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Text 1. Sutta Goswami, continuing to speak to all the rishis,
So right
headed
there,
by Shaunaka, said.
What's that, Raghu?
Sutta Goswami,
Yeah.
continuing to speak to all the rishis, headed by Shaunaka.
So where does that bring us?
Back to the beginning of the Bhagavatam.
Back to
Sage level 1.
Sage level 1, right? Yeah, right back to the first
1.
canto.
You want to? Okay, I said it. Now you have to say me likey sometimes. I said Sage level 1. You have to say me likey at least once.
I liked
before
it.
this episode ends.
I liked it.
No, I don't want to hear you like it.
So just for everyone, just sometimes I meet people and they tell me, still I have trouble following everything. So when we say Sage level 1, we mean that at the beginning of this book, right, at the beginning of this huge collection of narrations, we started with Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya. And they were asking him questions. And in order to answer questions, he began to describe a conversation he had overheard, right, between Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. So that's Sage level 2.
They're telling stories of other conversations.
That's right.
And sometimes within that conversation, it'll go to another conversation.
So when Sukadev Goswami is speaking about the conversations that are taking place between Vidura and Maitreya, that's Sage level 3.
And then it's a story within a story.
When Maitreya starts to speak about, Lord Shiva speaking to, Daksha, now you're at Sage level 4, right? So now we jumped all the way back up to Sage level 1.
Kaustubha calls it sage level. That was his coined phrase. Mm-hmm. For those who also don't know, I occasionally, when I really like something, I say me likey. And Kaustubha refuses to say me likey. Even if he likes it, he just won't say it. And I refuse to say Sage level 2, Sage level 3. Okay. I didn't like that, but today I said it. So now I'm asking generously, Kaustubha, at one point today, you got to say, me likey.
I may not.
And you got to sound just like that.
Okay, let's start reading, Raghunath.
Okay. Sutta Goswami, continuing to speak. Okay, here's a little interesting trivia question for you, Kaustubha. Sutta Goswami.
Yeah.
That is the same as, it's not a trivia question. It's me questioning you. Sutta Goswami is Romaharshana Sutta, isn't it?
Or his son, right?
It's the son of Romaharshana Sutta, okay,
Yeah.
from the Krishna book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all. That was just a squirrel.
Okay.
Sutta Goswami continued to speak to all the rishis headed by Shaunaka. Sutta Goswami continued to speak to all the rishis
headed by Shaunaka,
said, after hearing Maitreya Rishi describe Dhruva Maharaj's ascent to Lord Vishnu's abode, Vidura became very much enlightened in devotional emotion.
Interesting.
And inquired from Maitreya as follows.
So that was the effect of hearing about Dhruva, is that Vidura became enlightened in devotional emotion.
Vidura inquired from Maitreya. Now we're back in Sage level 3. We've jumped.
Yeah.
That's 2 me likeys now. Vidura inquired. O greatly advanced devotee, who were the prachetas? Because they were mentioned earlier. To which family did they belong? Whose sons were they? And where did they perform that great sacrifice? Vidura continued, I know that the great sage Narada is the greatest of all devotees. He has compiled the pāñcarātrika procedure of devotional service and has directly met the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
What's the pāñcarātrika procedure?
That's how to worship the deities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There are two rails that devotional service takes place on, right? Pāñcarātrika-vidhi and?
I can't remember.
It starts with a B.
B?
Mm-hmm. And then an H. And then an A.
Bhagavat.
Yeah, there you go. Bhagavata-mārga, right? Or the Bhagavata-vidhi. Yeah,
So
so vidhi means like the regulations or the rules or the instructions. So there's pāñcarātrika and bhagavat. So bhagavata-mārga means that it means like, especially means the chanting of the holy name, right? It's like it's so powerful and effective and directly connected to God that if one just simply sits around and chants, that's all they really need to do. But Narada, understanding that most of us are not really so capable of doing that, our minds are always disturbed. They're always running here and there. So he compiled the pāñcarātrika-vidhi, which has a lot to do with, it brings ritual and behavior and these kind of things into the picture. And so by embracing those, it helps us develop the kind of mind that we can absorb deeply in the meditation on the mantra. So we practice on both, we practice both of these. We practice Bhagavata-mārga. That's the most important, but we also practice the pāñcarātrika so that we may be able to better practice the Bhagavata-mārga.
Okay, text 4. While all the prachetas were executing dharmic rituals, right, and sacrificial ceremonies, and thus worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his satisfaction, the great sage Narada described the transcendental qualities of Dhruva Maharaj. My dear Brahmanas, how did Narada Muni glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And what pastimes were described in that meeting? I'm very eager to hear of them. Kindly explain fully about the glorification of the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
The great sage Maitreya replied, Vidura, when Maharaj Dhruva departed for the forest, his son Utkala did not desire to accept the opulent throne of his father, which was meant for the ruler of all the lands of this planet.
Interesting, right? Power was offered, fame, wealth.
Didn't want it.
He didn't want it.
Yeah. From his very birth, Utkala was fully satisfied and unattached to the world. He was equipped, he was equipoised, and he could see everything resting in the supersoul and the supersoul present in everyone's heart.
Okay.
He didn't want to play the games of the material world.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to go through our stuff in the material world, and we know it. Even when we get into spiritual truth and stuff like that, we're like, you know what? I still got business here in the material world. And I'm into spirituality. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll give in charity. But I got work to do in this material world. I got some desires to burn off. I have to get to the point where I have to fully realize that this material world is just sort of, it's ultimately futile. But I don't get that fully. So I'm going to work in the world, or I'm going to work in the world because I'm good at working in the world and I want to contribute to a higher cause. So even spiritual people who are very in the know still go through those different options in their mind,
Yeah, and of course, this is the recommendation of the Bhagavad Gita, right? That you engage with the world, carry out your duties, but do them, always thinking of God as an offering to God, etc. And so, but here we have Utkala, and again, these past couple of weeks, we've been talking about these two levels of vision or realization, right? The absolute and the relative. And so it seems that Utkala, he was capable and qualified to bring his mind to God all the time and to absorb himself deeply in that absolute reality. And he didn't need to be purified by working through, the relative, world and taking up his duties and so on. So for someone like that, and it's describing him right here, right now, right? It says that he's upashant atma. He's like like it's saying he's shanta, right? Upashanta. He's very satisfied. He's very peaceful already. His mind is already peaceful, right? And it says that he's nisanga, that he's detached. And it says that he has darshana, that he has equal vision. So he's already got this he's already on this very deep spiritual level. And he just wants to absorb his mind in God. And to him, like a lot of people, if you offered them that kingly role, they'd be like, yeah, right? Like, this, I got whatever I say goes. I got wealth. Likely the king, has beautiful wives. Likely the king has, definitely the king has great fame. And one might think those are all enjoyable. But for someone on Utkala's level, someone who's upashantatma, someone who's nisanga, someone who's got darshana, it didn't appear attractive to him at all. Right? He was more, he had this enthusiasm or this eagerness to commune with God. And so he walked away from it all.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
I was reading.
I was going to say there's some nice stuff in the commentary here. I'll read it.
Yeah,
since
please.
You don't have your glasses.
Thank you.
It says, this is Prabhupada speaking. He says, a highly advanced Maha-bhāgavata devotee. What's a Maha-bhāgavata?
Means a big bhagavat. It means a great devotee.
Yeah, like the highest level, right? They talk about Bhakti-yogis on 3 different levels. This is the highest level. So a highly advanced Maha-bhagavat devotee sees in his spirit, he sees the same supersoul, Paramatma, existing within everyone's heart, regardless of discrimination based on the different material forms of living entities. He sees everyone as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Maha-bhagavat, who experiences the Supreme Godhead's presence everywhere, is never missing from the sight of the Supreme Lord, nor is the Supreme Lord ever lost from his sight. This is possible only when one is advanced in love of Godhead. So yeah, he's, to take up that, someone that's already on his level, right? Being the king or taking up any social responsibility can be performed as a yoga to bring one to this level of realization. He's already on it and he's deep in it. And to take up the role of the king would be like, I like seeing God in everyone's heart, and I like seeing people not based on their body or even their activities. I like that whenever I'm seeing anyone, I'm seeing, a pure soul. But if I'm asked to be king, I have to begin to discriminate on that material level, on that relative level, right? I have to say these people are doing right and these people are doing wrong, and it's my responsibility to deal with it. I would rather just, stay on this level where I'm seeing everyone as pure. And so he just walked away from it.
All right, text 8 and 9. By expansion of his knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, he had already attained liberation from the bondage of the body. This liberation is known as nirvana. He was thus situated in transcendental bliss, and he continued always in the blissful existence, which expanded more and more, right? Sometimes you get a kid and you just get a spiritual kid. You have a bunch of kids, one of them's totally spiritual. Right? Mm-hmm. So he had this nirvana-like child. Mm-hmm. This was possible for him by continual practice of bhakti yoga, which is compared to the fire because it burns away all dirty material things. Mm-hmm. He was always situated in his constitutional position of self-realization, and he could not see anything else but the Supreme Lord and himself engaged in discharging devotional service.
So it's, sometimes it's said that the Maha-bhagavat, the top level, comes down to the intermediate level so that they can do service, right?
Just so they can even interact with the world.
Yeah.
Because they can imagine how weird it would be if all you could see was, I see everybody as a pure devotee, You couldn't function in this world. People would cheat you. People would rob you.
So yeah, because you're seeing, because the externals mean so little to you, and the internal means everything to you. Right. That like practically you can't take up any responsibility in life because you're not dealing with stuff that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And so it's said that sometimes the Maha-bhagavat comes down to that intermediate level. The topmost level comes down to the intermediate level so that it can deal. But from the way that this sentence is phrased, it almost sounds like he couldn't do that even if he tried. You know, he just wasn't built for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we hear more about him, and this really begins to spell it out when we hear this next text 10.
Okay. Utkala appeared to be the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind.
Utkala appeared to the less intelligent persons on the road.
Yeah. Utkala appeared to be less intelligent.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm struggling here today. Utkala appeared to the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad, although actually he was not so. He remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flames. Right? So he was actually the real wise one. He just didn't show it off.
Mm-hmm. And he was so completely deep in this state of spiritual consciousness that he just wasn't at all playing the game. Like, you know, you go up and ask him a question, he's not going to even answer it. He appears like he's like mute or something like that, right? Because he's just not engaging in that conversation. He seems to be totally out of it, but he's actually totally into it. And so it says he was like fire covered with ashes. It's like he's burning. It may not look like it, but he's burning with wisdom. He's burning with deep spiritual realization.
Sometimes in the ashram, we meet people like this, right?
Yeah.
They come off like they're not so bright. They're almost a little on the spectrum of something or other. And they're actually very deep people, very deep people. They're just not big mouths like me. You know, they just keep it internally. And you think maybe they're sort of awkward. They don't fit in with society, but they're really deep. And it's as if they really get the world.
Well, you know, Raghunath, I totally agree with what you're saying. And it is a theme.
You say that a lot.
What do I say?
Doesn't Mayor, right? Doesn't he say that? Raghunath, I totally get what you're saying.
No, I do.
No, I know. You do, but you do say that
sincere?
a lot.
Okay. And this is a theme, and we've spoken about this too, but this is a theme that you see if you make it your life, you know, a big part of your life to read Bhagavatam, to read Mahabharata, you'll see that a theme comes up often where there's someone with very deep realization, but that people can't recognize it.
Judd Bart.
Well, yeah, Prabhupada's going to mention you're thinking like Prabhupada.
What? I'm not reading the purport.
I'll read the purport. I'll read the purport right now, and then we'll continue. Prabhupada writes, this is part of the purport. He says, in order to avoid contradiction, botheration, and unfavorable situations created by materialistic persons. We could analyze this situation, right? In order to avoid contradiction, botheration, and unfavorable situations created by materialistic persons, a great saintly person like Jada Bharat, another person that will come up before long.
Said that. Just said that.
Or Utkala remains silent. So in other words, I'm not interested in getting into this. We were talking about contradiction earlier today, right? In our nugget.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's people on this side and there's people on that side. You know what? I'm not interested in all this contradiction, right? So in order to avoid contradiction, botheration, and unfavorable situations, a super advanced person may be appearing to be not so. So a great saintly person like Jada Bharat or Utkala remains silent. The less intelligent consider such saintly persons to be mad, deaf, or dumb. Factually, an advanced devotee avoids speaking with persons who are not in devotional life. But to those who are in devotional life, he speaks in friendship, and he speaks to the innocent for their enlightenment. Right? So we've been talking about that in the past too, right? Different ways of associating with different people. For all practical purposes, the whole world is full of non-devotees. And so one kind of very advanced devotee is called bhajanānandī, or bhajanānandī. Well, Prabhupada contrasts this. Those who are goṣṭhy-ānandī, however, preach to increase the number of devotees. But even such preachers also avoid opposing elements who are unfavorably disposed towards spiritual life. So Prabhupada mentions two terms here. Bhajanānandī literally means one's deriving their ananda, or their bliss, from their bhajan, from their solitary bhajan, right? And then there's goṣṭhy-ānandī, goṣṭhi means the assembly, right? So they're deriving their bliss in the assembly, right? And so here we're hearing how Utkala, he was a bhajanānandī, right? He was not interested in mixing with society at all. So even he wasn't going to speak to you. He wasn't going to look at you. He appeared like this guy's crazy. And as we're mentioning, you read Mahabharata, you read Bhagavatam, you're going to hear different examples of people like this. This, or also the deva appears in disguise, right? Like the god, God, one of the devas, one of the gods, comes in a form of someone that you might see as low class or crazy or whatever, a beggar, something like that. And they're seeing how you respond to them in that form, right? Like in other words, if Lord Indra walked in the door right now, likely Raghunath would show him great respect, right? You try to find,
right.
But what would happen if, just like someone that appeared like just crazy and disheveled, and how would you respond to them?
Well, it's like one of the prophets of the 90s once said, her name was Saint Joan Osborne.
Oh,
what if God was one of us, just a slob, like one of us, just a stranger on the bus.
Trying to make his way home?
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. All right.
But, what if God was one of us?
That was a big hit back then, wasn't it?
That was a good song.
You think so?
I thought so.
Okay. But the point is this, is that if you read that and if you take it to heart, it is meant, hearing those kind of stories again and again and seeing that they reappear, they come up occasionally in this kind of, what does it mean to us? Like, if I take it to mean that as I pass through this world, I have to understand, even if you're operating on level 2, right, on the intermediate level, still there has to be that aspect of that high. You have to be cultivating that Mahabhagavat attitude, that Mahabhagavat vision, that is, and like say living in New York, right? You're walking down the street, practically every block, you're there's someone that seems to be losing it, right? Or someone that's lost it.
It really is. Yeah. I was walking around Brooklyn yesterday with my nephews. I was like, man, I was like, wow, that guy's, because my kids, it's like, they don't never see crazies. We live in the country. They run through the fields. They're right out of like the Waltons, my kids. They're like walking into streets without looking both ways. I was like, come on, you got to look this way and that way. You can't walk in the streets. And then there's a guy just like talking in a cell phone. No one's on the cell phone. He's just cursing and saying like vulgar things. And my young son was just like, what is going on? And his nephew who lives here is going, oh yeah, we've got about millions of these people everywhere. That's just saying obscenities, some lewd act.
And so one way to pass through the world is to see every one of these as a test, right? Like, who was it Maharaj Shibi? That he was the king and he was fasting. There's Rantidev and there's Shibi. Sometimes I mix the two of them up.
And Maharaj Nimi.
Well, there's Nimi as well.
Too. I confuse them too.
But he had done a long fast, and like a very long fast. Practically, he was like emaciated and everything, right? And he was about to take his meal.
Oh yeah,
right. And then one by one, different people approach him. Like Beggar approaches him. Okay, well, here's half of my food I give to you, right? And then the next person approaches him, and then the devas are approaching him in disguise as like, crazy. He's giving half to them, then, it's one thing after another.
Bhagavatam has so many good stories in it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So you see that, okay, I get it. He was being tested by the devas to see how deep his darshana goes, right? How deep his compassion goes, how deep his respect for every living entity goes. Okay, we get it, if one of the devas comes down appearing in his normal form, he's going to show me respect. But what if I come as a beggar? What if I come as a disheveled, smelly beggar, right?
This was clearly expressed in by another great saint in the 70s.
Oh, no.
Andy Gibb. How deep is your love?
I think that was the Bee Gees, not the Andy Gibb.
Is your love? Go on.
So in one sense, we can see, my understanding is that we're meant to learn from that. We're meant to pick something up from it. There's a message in all of that for us, right? that we're meant to be cultivating that Mahabhagavat vision, that Mahabhagavat compassion, that Samadarshana, and God is going to throw us in our life in so many different forms, challenges to that, that how will I respond to this person, that appears crazy? How will I respond to this person that seems completely lost, bizarre, like whatever it may be, and I'm not saying that necessarily you have to start to give money to every single person that you see or something like that, but you do have to think about that, and you do really have to think about your attitude towards them and where your heart and mind is when you're dealing with these people on a regular basis.
Yes. Special K. Here's what I'm thinking. I was about to call you K-Dog, but Special K, I like better. K. This is spiritual boot camp. Like you send the guy out to war, they get 8 weeks of boot camp. And they learn how to shoot the rifle. They learn how to clean the rifle. They learn how to, they make them work out, lose some weight, climb up nets and jump down and crawl through the mud, learn how to use hand grenades.
Raghunath's television and movie understanding of what happens if
through watching Stripes.
Watching Stripes, okay.
But there's basically Hell Week for 8 weeks or something. And what it is, it's preparing you for war. We are in spiritual boot camp right now. We're in this material world, learning tricks of the trade to regain our spiritual body. How do we act in the spiritual world? How do we think in the spiritual world? How do we behave? How do we treat other people? How do we treat ourselves in the spiritual world? Otherwise life just seems like random, ups and downs and miserable meals and wonderful meals and goods and bads and smooth roads and then bumpy roads and potholes. But no, they're all perfectly designed in the same way a boot camp would be designed to refine us to be the best person that we can be to enter the spiritual world. And sometimes people graduate early and they become not of this world. Some people are even coming into boot camp. Like they say, if a person's been working on the farm or something like that, they've had a hard life or they've done a lot of manual labor, then they go to boot camps, things like, oh, this is nothing. I do stuff like this all the time. The same way people have been practicing spiritual life for lifetimes. They come in this world, they're already a little detached. They're already not so angry, resentful, bitter. They're detached. They can control their senses. This comes from lifetimes of practice. And so here we are in the material world. We're learning tools to be spiritualists, to resurrect what we already are. That's Easter Sunday, my friend. That's the resurrection.
Me likey.
Ooh, likey. It only works if you say it in an octave higher.
Likey. It is such a fascinating way to think about how to turn your entire life into yoga, right? So much of it has to do with how I relate to every living being, and particularly when we're challenged, right? To see that when you see someone that's kind of embodying the Samadarshana, this seeing the soul within every living being, seeing the super soul, seeing God within every living being, you see that they kind of move so gracefully through the world in all the different situations that they're in. Yep. Where other people are being embarrassed, by the different circumstances that come. Comedy has so much to do with this, right? Comedy is, you watch Seinfeld, is just constantly about, becoming frustrated by things not going the way that you want to go, and you're responding to the things out of your frustration, and they're getting worse, and it's funny just to watch someone going through that, but people that don't get frustrated, right? People that have this vision, it seems they move through the world, quite gracefully, because there's a respect that they have for the soul within everyone, and somehow it's communicated and somehow it's felt. There's the example like the sadhus say in Vrindavan, the snakes, they don't they don't bother the sadhus. You don't have to worry, right? Like even that this within the soul, or the paramatma within that snake, recognizes the good heart of the sadhu, and the snake doesn't bother. I remember one time
There's some bad snakes out there.
You see now, Raghunath, you see right there, that was intermediate level thinking, but the sadhu was thinking on there. They say no.
I was thinking of Hari Bhajan got bit by a snake. That's how he died.
But that may be, but the snake may have been a deva itself, taking him.
What are you, the lawyer of the snakes?
but I was thinking
go on with
of
your analogy, sir.
I was thinking of one time, I used to, sometimes you go to Vrindavan, right?
Yeah.
Or Braja, that larger Vrindavan, and the little kids come running up to you, right? And they look like little ragamuffin kind of, they're all messy and
Oliver Twist-ish.
Yeah. They got snot running down their nose, and their hair hasn't been combed in a long time. And they come running up to you, and they start to beg, and they're pulling on your clothes, and sometimes they just even won't leave you alone, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you see that the devotees that they've gone to Vrindavan, they're like, now I came here to absorb my mind in this, and these kids are just, I'm trying to walk around Govardhan Hill, and they're pulling on my, they're pulling on me, and they just won't leave me alone, and they're just, and you're thinking, and you see them begin to become frustrated and angry, and or just disturbed, or their mind becomes disturbed. I used to watch people like Raghunath Swami, and I see how he responds, and I learned from it, that like I see whenever he's in, whenever there's like that, he just looks down at that child, and he just starts to pet them just like they're like a baby calf or something like that, right? It's just like nothing but like they're pulling it, and he's just looking like, I love you, you're so beautiful, sweet little.
You give out little sweets or candies or
and
maha,
when,
if you bring maha.
And when you respond, it kind of totally disarms the little kid. And he's just like, oh, and I started to just like learn that. And I just started to do the same thing myself, to like not in any way feel any sense of agitation, but just to say, oh, hey, sweet little one, and just respond to them like that. And then just, they just, you can move so much more smoothly through the world. And I've shared this advice with others, and they found that it totally also worked for them. Just like see the special sweet person there, and just respond like they're your loved one, and rather than saying, come on, leave me alone, like that, where you're just responding to the external, go to that internal, and life becomes much smoother and easier, and your mind is not disturbed, and you're thinking of Krishna, and you're thinking of the soul. So Utkala was like that. He was moving through the world like that. People thought he's nuts. People thought he's crazy. He just wasn't responding. But he was a very, very special soul underneath it all. People couldn't see it.
Utkala. Okay. Continuing on. For this reason, do we have time? What time is it? 54. For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought that Utkala to be without intelligence and, in fact, slightly mad.
A little bit. Sorry, the son of the king is a little bit crazy.
A little pago. Thus, his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne, and he became king of the world.
Okay, so Vatsara.
I'm king of the world!
So now the verses are going to move quickly. We're going to hear about like the different generations are going to go down. Vatsara is going to have children. They're going to have children. They're going to have children.
I like the fact that, sometimes they do this genealogical table of kings, but they took a little detour and mentioned the one who didn't choose to be the king because he was apparently mad. I think this is great that they
right.
They
in other words, why does Bhagavatam even have to go there?
Madness.
Yeah. It was just to share a little message with us there, and then
so
it's going to continue.
Here is the younger brother, King Vatsara, had a very dear wife whose name was Svarviti, and she gave birth to 6 sons named Pushparna, Tigmaketu, Isa, Krija, Vasu, and Jaya.
Okay.
Pushpara had 2 wives named Prabha and Dosa. Prabha had 3 sons.
Not dosa. That would be something to eat.
She said, that kid sounds
Dosha.
delicious.
Dosha. And dosa.
Aloo.
Dosa.
Dosa. Madhyandinam and Satyam.
Okay, those are the sons of Prabha.
I can go for Dosa right now.
Mm-hmm.
Dosa had 3 sons named Pradosha.
Not dosa, but anyway. Dosha.
Nishita and Vyutsa. Vyutsa's wife was named Pushkarini, and she gave birth to a very powerful son named Sarvateja. Sarvateja's wife, Akuti, gave birth to a son named Chakshush, who became the 6th Manu at the end of the Manu millennium.
Okay.
Nadwala, the wife of Chakshush Manu, gave birth to the following faultless sons: Puru, Kutsa, Treta, Dyumna, Satyavan, Rita, Brata, Agnistoma, Atiratra, Pradyumna, Shibi, and Ulmuka.
There's Shibi, right? We were talking about
There's
before.
Maharaj Shibi right there.
Yeah.
Of the 12 sons, Ulmuka begot 6 sons and his wife Pushkarini. They were all very good sons, and their names were Anga, Sumana, Kyati, Kratu, Angira, and Gaya.
Okay.
The wife of
So we just fast forwarded through several generations, right? And later in Bhagavatam, it's going to pick up on some of those names. But for now, it's continuing to move on. And now we've gone down different generations. If we landed to Maharaj Anga. Okay. Now this is where the problem's going to start.
It's all getting bad quick.
Okay.
The wife of Anga, Sunita, gave birth to a son named Vena, who was very crooked. The saintly king Anga was very disappointed with Vena's bad character, and he left home, and the kingdom went out. He left home in the kingdom and went to the forest.
Okay.
I had enough of this. I had enough of this kid. I'm going to the forest.
Yeah. So maybe we stop here for today, but where we go from here is we're going to hear more about this Vena.
Okay.
And he was a problematic king.
Vena. He's got issues. The kid's got some serious discipline issues.
And then the Brahmins are going to take him out.
I'm going to take him out the transcendental way. Transcendental sound. All right. Well, all righty. That's our show. Yeah, that's our Monday. Hey, you got to, before with the takeaways, you got to check out, Rachel has been working on Wisdom of the Sages site, which we have the Sage Academy. We have a lot of Sage Academy offerings up this summer. Excited to connect with everybody. I won't even get into it. Check it out. It's going to be more wrapped up today, including Ashram Month. Stubby.
All right.
Mara, you got any good takeaways for me? I need some little nuggets of wealth.
I do. I have some for you to put in your pocket today.
Thank you.
Save it for a rainy day.
Yeah. By meditating on evil, you invite opportunity for evil.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to understand those you disagree with.
Understand.
Seek and cultivate divinity within, not the devil in others.
There you go.
Love that.
Work on getting rid of your personal hate.
The devil made me do it.
Cultivate Maha Bhagavat vision.
These are great. I said nothing. I said none of these today.
We'll all be
A lot of those
tested.
early ones.
Yeah. We'll all be tested on the depth of our Sama darshana. Where is your heart and mind when you're dealing with crazies?
Quote, unquote, crazies. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Mara, let's do Mara. Don't go calling them crazies, Mara. Okay.
Don't go breaking my heart.
We're in spiritual boot camp.
What did you say?
We're in spiritual boot camp. And Kaustubha likey.
Kaustubha likey.
I liked it up until then.
You likeys. Don't go breaking my heart. I wouldn't if I tried. What is that? Captain and Tennille?
Elton John and Kiki D.
Man, you know all this stuff. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this Monday. The way to start your week. Tell your friends about Wisdom of the Sages. Share it with a friend. Check out the Sage page, wisdomofthesages.com. Sign up for our newsletter and check out our Sage Academy offerings. Interested in Italy? We got about 6 spots left. You better do it quick because we all go into Italy. Looking forward to that.